Hi everyone, we will continue discussing the thyroid gland. We have already discussed the anatomy, embryology, physiology, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, and carcinoma of the thyroid. Today we will complete the rest of the thyroid. When somebody comes with a thyroid disease, how the evolution takes place? The normal thyroid gland is impalpable. That means normally, in a normal individual, thyroid gland is not palpable. When thyroid gland is palpable or seen, it is known as goiter. Sometimes we'll have an STL, solitary thyroid nodule, isolated, and dominant nodule, or it may be simple, non-toxic, toxic. It is a very interesting thing. Whenever you think of a thyroid disorder, we always say something about the functional status, whether it is euthyroid, hyperthyroid, or hypothyroid. Goiter, the definition is generalized enlargement or diffuse enlargement. Both lobes and isthmus, if they are enlarged, it is known as goiter. This is the textbook definition. Now, goiter can be a simple goiter without any functional disturbance, or a toxic goiter. Here, there is hyperfunctioning thyroid tissue. Or it may be inflammatory goiter, that's we call it thyroiditis. It may be bacterial, it may be autoimmune, it may be anything that produces inflammation, that is inflammatory goiter, commonly known as thyroiditis. Neoplastic goiter, that is a new growth. You are fresh from pathology, you know the meaning of neoplasia. It may be benign, or more commonly, it is malignant. That is called neoplastic goiter. When you are taking the history, first is age. Is it congenital or neonate or early childhood? What is the age of onset of the problem? Is it during puberty or pregnancy? Rarely during lactation. Commonly during puberty, sometimes during pregnancy, rarely lactation. And is it young girls, young adult, middle age, or elder? Unlike other carcinomas, carcinoma of thyroid is not necessarily an old age disease. Especially papillary carcinoma of thyroid occurs in young adults. And rarely medullary thyroid carcinoma, when it is occurring in a familial form, it occurs even in neonates or infants, or rarely early childhood. This is the importance of age in a case of carcinoma thyroid. Again, to repeat, unlike other carcinomas, most of them which occurs or which are more common in the elderly age group, carcinoma thyroid is not necessarily an old age disease. We have seen in infants and early childhood medullary thyroid carcinoma. When it occurs in a familial form, that is common. And again, in young adults or young people, we have this papillary thyroid carcinoma. The commonest age group for papillary thyroid carcinoma is young age. When there is a goiter we already seen, diffuse enlargement of the thyroid gland. We'll ask for the duration of the complaint, then associated symptoms like dysphagia, that is difficulty in swallowing. Generally, huge goiters produces this, or sometimes we'll come to that. Dyspnea, difficulty in breathing. Dysphonia, change in voice. These are common basing on the size of the neoplasm. But anaplastic carcinoma, by local infiltration, can produce dysphagia or dyspnea dysphonia by infiltrating the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and sometimes other lumps like lymph nodes, or when you take the follicular carcinoma, as we discussed in the last class, bony metastasis, especially proximal, maybe hip joint, maybe shoulder, where you have or a skull, functioning bony metastasis, their pulse tight, he may present like that. We have also discussed a rare case presentation in the King George Hospital with a right hemiplegia. The patient comes with the complaint of inability to use right upper limb and right lower limb. Casually diagnosed as right hemiplegia because he's elderly man, but that is not the case. Again, the normal thyroid gland is not palpable. The goiter, when thyroid gland is palpable, it is called goiter, palpable or seen clearly. Goiter is the word originated from gutter from Latin. In this goiter, we'll have an isolated solitary nodule in 70% of cases, and a dominant nodule may occur in 30% of cases. Endemic goiter that occurs in the deficiency of iodine, more common in the mountainous regions, also seen in the coastal regions. Endemic goiter. Endemic, you know the definition of endemic. SPM people will tell you what is the endemic goiter definition area. And surprisingly, it is common in the coastal regions also. And the raw material for the thyroid hormone is iodine. And what is the daily requirement of iodine in an adult? We already read in physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology. And they are going to teach you again in SPM and also in medicine. At least know what is the daily requirement or daily recommended allowances of iodine in an adult. This is the definition I am repeatedly telling. Goiter means generalized enlargement of the thyroid gland is goiter. Now, classification of thyroid goiter. We have a simple goiter, that is euthyroid. I'm telling always we'll think of the functional status of that particular gland. So in a euthyroid goiter, commonly diffuse hyperplastic goiter. Diffuse hyperplastic means the name itself is self-explanatory. It is diffuse. Both lobes and isthmus are involved. It is due to hyperplasia. Okay. Why it occurs or when it occurs? It is also known as physiological goiter, pubertal goiter, pregnancy goiter, sometimes rarely in lactation also. In all these conditions, you take a puberty, there is a increased growth spurt. The body demands more thyroxine hormones. To meet the increased demand, the gland hyperplasia occurs. That is known as hyperplastic goiter. And same thing may be repeated in pregnancy where the iodine or thyroxine requirement may be more. And rarely, very rarely, it may occur in lactation also. The gland is hyperplasia change is taking place because of physiological reasons. That's why it's called physiological goiter. Once the demand is met and the period is over, naturally gland comes back to normal state. If it doesn't come, it goes on to colloid goiter, and next is multinodular goiter. When multinodular goiter occurs, it is pathological. The nodules are not reversible. You know how the multinodular goiter produced, that is etiopathogenesis of multinodular goiter. Fresh from pathology, you must be knowing very well. When coming to the toxic, we have till now we have seen euthyroid or simple goiter. Now toxic goiter, it is diffuse primary thyrotoxicosis or Graves' disease. Again common in young age. Multinodular toxic goiter. What happens in a multinodular goiter? Around 30% of cases may take a toxic turn. That is called toxic multinodular goiter. And sometimes there is a toxic adenoma. One single nodule taking a toxic turn, it is called toxic adenoma. It is not TSH dependent. Whereas diffuse Graves' disease is caused by thyroid autoantibodies. Now coming to neoplastic, there is benign and malignant. Benign tumors of thyroid, very rare and not clinically that important. But malignancy, this is most common endocrine cancer occurs in thyroid disorders. So thyroid malignancy is the most common endocrine malignancy. Coming to inflammatory, thyroiditis, autoimmune, this is chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay, then we have granulomatous, otherwise known as de Quirin's thyroiditis. Fibrosis, it may be part of a generalized fibrosis, that is Riedel's thyroiditis. And we have infective, that is acute, bacterial, viral, subacute thyroiditis. Maybe after an attack of upper respiratory tract infection, you have a subacute thyroiditis may occur. And chronic, rarely tuberculosis and syphilis can occur in thyroid. Others causing inflammatory is amyloid thyroiditis. Now coming to solitary or isolated thyroid nodule. What is the definition of a solitary or isolated thyroid nodule? A discrete, clear swelling in one lobe with no palpable abnormality elsewhere in the gland. This you observe carefully. There is a single swelling palpable in either of the lobes or in the isthmus region, and there is no palpable or visible abnormality elsewhere in the gland. That is called solitary isolated thyroid nodule. If you take a thyroid nodule, the incidence of this is around 70%. 70% of thyroid nodules are caused by solitary or isolated thyroid nodules. Then the next question is, what conditions can cause the solitary or isolated thyroid nodule? 30 to 40% of these nodules are produced by follicular adenoma. We have already discussed papillary adenoma. Even if it is well encapsulated, it is considered as follicular carcinoma, papillary carcinoma only, and there is no entity like papillary adenoma in thyroid. The second point is, when you have 30 to 40% of follicular adenoma, you have to differentiate it from follicular carcinoma. How you differentiate it? By vascular invasion and capsular invasion. That differentiate whether it is a benign follicular adenoma or an invasive follicular carcinoma. Now we have rest of the things are non-neoplastic like a thyroid cyst, colloid degeneration. Okay, then we have thyroiditis, inflammatory swellings. So the majority of solitary isolated thyroid nodules are produced by follicular adenoma. followed by carcinoma. It can be anything, papillary carcinoma or follicular carcinoma. Rarely anaplastic or medical. But these differentiated carcinomas are more common. Then we have non-neoplastic conditions like thyroid cyst, thyroiditis, colloid goiter. These may be other causes accounting for the pathological causes of solitary or isolated thyroid nodule. Now, what is a dominant nodule? Here, dominant nodule means there is a discrete swelling with the evidence of abnormality as palpable contralateral lobe or generalized mild nodular. The whole gland is abnormal. There may be a multiple nodules or a mild nodularity. Both lobes are involved, maybe unequal. One side more enlargement, other side less. And this is one of these things here called dominant nodule. The commonest example is multinodular goiter. There are multiple nodules. One nodule take a dominant status, that is called dominant nodule. The underlying point is there is a palpable or visible contralateral lobe or generalized mild nodule. This accounts for 30%. We have a solitary thyroid nodule, discrete thyroid nodule about 70%, and we have seen the pathological conditions which clinically manifest as solitary thyroid nodule. Second, on the other side, we have dominant nodule, which accounts for 30%. And the commonest cause for dominant nodule is simply a dominant nodule of a multinodular goiter. Now, we are more concerned about either isolated thyroid swelling or a dominant. As I told you, benign thyroid disorders like a benign neoplasms, they are overshadowed by the malignancy. Now, if you take isolated thyroid swellings, now around 24% may be solid, and another 12% may be cystic. And again, you see, solid isolated thyroid swellings are more common in male, 48%. They are less common in female, 12%. Cystic, where you can aspirate some fluid. Again, male 24%, female 6%. Taking the dominant thyroid swelling, solid, there is a dominant. That means rest of the gland is also abnormal. One nodule is very prominent or very dominant. Again, it may be solid, it may be cystic. Okay. In a solid dominant thyroid swelling, males account for 24%, whereas females 6%. That means a dominant thyroid swelling, 6%, 12% may be solid. Of these, around 6% may be cystic. If you take cystic, males are 12%, female 3%. Generalized thyroid swelling. Generalized thyroid swelling means whole gland is enlarged. It accounts for 3% of incidence of carcinoma. We are all discussing the incidence of carcinoma in either isolated or discrete thyroid swelling, or a dominant thyroid nodule, or a goiter, generalized thyroid swelling. Now, the risk of malignancy in a thyroid swelling, rule of 12. The risk of cancer in a thyroid swelling can be expressed as a factor of 12. The risk is greater in isolated versus dominant. Isolated, we have a greater incidence of carcinoma rather than dominant. And again, solid, a more worrisome factor than a cystic. And again, men, you see the men always more vulnerable than the woman in a case of carcinoma thyroid. Iodine is a double-edged weapon. If there is iodine deficiency, you have iodine deficiency disorders, that is called IDD. If there is a iodine excess, apart from some carcinomas, we have autoimmune thyroid disorders incidence is increased. And especially remember, it is dangerous to take too much iodine, especially in the pregnancy and especially during the third trimester of pregnancy. It is very dangerous. It is a double-edged, should have a sufficient. And you know the richest source of iodine, the natural source I'm asking. Don't say salt. Richest source of iodine naturally occurring. Richest source, you should know. And again, SPM people will tell you the richest source of natural iodine. Now what happens when there is a history of goiter? How it happens? Something goitrogens, brassica family. You know that cabbage, cauliflower. Everybody likes them, but now somebody takes a cauliflower curry, gobi, say gobi Manchuria, yesterday. Will he develop the goiter today? That's the question. Brassica family, especially cabbage, cauliflower, some real and all, they're not available in India, don't worry. And the drugs, anti-thyroid drugs, they can produce goiter. Low intake of iodine, that's what we have seen. Iodine deficiency disorders, they result in endemic goiter. Goiter is metabolically predisposed in those individuals because there is low iodine intake. Diffuse hyperplastic goiter we have seen, it is physiological, puberty, pregnancy, rarely lactation. The basic fundamental point is the metabolic demands for thyroid hormones high during these states. As the demand is high, the gland enlarges, it hyperplastic, it becomes hyperplasia to produce more hormone. That is the basis for, that's why it is called a physiological. To meet a physiological demand, the gland is overworked. Like in your exams, you read day and night because you have to cover a lot and there is a greater demand for time. There is a persistent stimulation, whole gland, both lobes and isthmus, there is a diffuse hyperplasia occurring. So this hyperplasia is soft, diffuse. Again, whole gland and reversible if the stimulus is stopped. If the stimulus is not stopped, it is continuing. Then what happens? Then you have a colloid goiter. This colloid goiter is a late stage of diffuse hyperplastic goiter. Till now, there is increased TSH stimulation. Now, the puberty phase is over, the pregnancy is over. The demand for thyroid hormones decrease. So naturally, the TSH also falls. Now, the follicles which have undergone hyperplasia, they become inactive and there is full of colloid without iodine or without thyroid hormones. So it is inactive follicles now because there is not much demand now. This is the one colloid goiter. You can see how whole gland is enlarged. See, left, right lobe, isthmus, left lobe, whole gland, a butterfly shape, whole gland in a patient about around 30 years. He will be coming again because of lockdown. He left to could not do a match. He came in the early stage of lockdown. So this is a diffuse, late stages of diffuse hyperplastic goiter. The gland enlarged, the whole gland to meet the demands. Now the demand is falling down. TSH stimulation is falling down. The gland persists. Now there is full of colloid without thyroid hormones, and these inactive follicles. And instantly you can see something here. So this is a keloid, a tendency for keloid formation. This is excessive scar tissue. It is a pathological condition, whereas scar, hypertrophy scar, okay, physiological. Then you draw a line. You are entering into a pathological territory. This is incidentally keloid. This tells us that this patient has a tendency for keloid development. So whenever you give a scar or you make an incision, more likely it is going to end up in a keloid formation. Okay, it is not dangerous but inconvenient, pathological, disfiguring, and embarrassing. Now, we have seen diffuse hyperplastic goiter, then colloid goiter, then slowly, the condition is progressing into multinodular goiter. Now, the three etiological factors are, we have seen that there is a persistent stimulation. Now it is changing. Things are changing. Now there is a fluctuating stimulation. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And even the response of follicles, it changes, it varies. One day it responds, the other day it doesn't respond. And there is a variable blood supply. These three important factors. Again, this is a recollection of your pathology. They're just revisiting, recollecting, revising your pathology. What you read in pathology. What is the causes for these multinodular goiter? We said diffuse, then colloid also diffuse. Now it is going to form nodules. So this results in active and inactive lobules. Active lobules become more vascular, they become hyperplastic, hemorrhage occurs, central necrosis, and only a rim of active follicles you will see in the lobule. Lobule is a basic structural unit in thyroid, consisting of 20 to 40 follicles. So these active follicles you will see at the periphery only, reminding you have central necrosis before the hemorrhage occurs. This is the stages in formation of multinodular goiter. Now, we have seen inactive and necrotic lobules, they unite to form nodules. And iodine-free colloid or new but inactive follicles. You may have follicles, but they are inactive. There is iodine-free. Colloid is iodine-free. No hormones. Once this nodular stage is formed, it is irreversible. It cannot go back into a normal state. Now, repetition of this process, we have seen fluctuating stimulation, fluctuating response of individual follicles, variable blood supply. It ultimately results over a period of time into the nodular goiter stage. Most nodules are inactive. The internodular tissue contains active follicles. This is important clinically. You want to take a biopsy, mostly FNAC. You know how, which type of biopsy is taken in thyroid, the role of FNAC, role of true cut, role of incision biopsy, or role of sometimes excision biopsy, or role of frozen biopsy. All these things you can recollect from your pathology. So when you want to take, where to choose when there are multiple nodules? You have to take internodular tissue because it contains active follicles. You take it from a nodule, inactive follicles, necrosis, no opinion by the pathologist. Now, usually these nodulars are multiple, that's why it is called multinodular goiter. Only one macroscopic nodule may become dominant present as clinically solitary thyroid nodule. We have seen what are the pathological conditions that constitute STN and also dominant nodule. Now, this is the nodule. See, multiple specimen, pathology specimen just removed from the thyroid gland on the table. You see, you count, you go on counting how many multiple. See, different sizes, different shapes. We have seen etiopathogens, how these nodules are formed. Whole gland is affected, and this is only a small part of the other lobe, but this is predominantly occurring in one lobe, multiple. Now, when there are nodules, first assess the state, whether euthyroid or hyperthyroid. They are visible, palpable, they are firm in consistency mostly, and mostly they are painless, unless they are associated inflammation, as it occurs in thyroiditis. Now look for the fixity, hotness. Hotness always indicates, whenever you see hotness, think of carcinoma. That is a general. And the more hotter, the more likely to be anaplastic carcinoma. Irregularity, you see, hotness may be due to calcification, but that is secondary importance. Our first priority is to exclude carcinoma. If it is calcification, okay, no problem. But if it is due to cancer, carcinoma, it requires immediate attention from, because you are dealing with a very serious condition, carcinoma of thyroid. And we have seen it occurs in young people. That is another worrisome fact. Painful nodules or sudden appearance may be associated with the rapid enlargement. It suggests there are multiple nodules. One nodule suddenly become painful, or sudden appearance of new nodules, or a nodule which is present for a long time, rapidly enlarging. Think of carcinoma first. It may be due to hemorrhage into a nodule, but this is secondary consideration. Again, the hemorrhage may be due to again carcinoma. So the first priority, second priority is again to exclude carcinoma, because carcinoma may cause rapid enlargement or a pain, though pain is produced by inflammatory thyroiditis, rare. Sudden appearance again, carcinoma, or rarely rapid enlargement due to a hemorrhage into a nodule. Okay, the cause for a hemorrhage may be again carcinoma. Your first priority is to exclude carcinoma. Second priority is to exclude carcinoma when these clinical features are present. Sometimes you have recurrent laryngeal nerve paralysis. What are the causes and how it clinically manifests? As you are going for ENT, they'll tell you everything. Again, we'll revise you these things in 8th and 9th semester. When your surgery exam, there may be lymphadenopathy. Again, extremes of age is very important. Young age and after 40 years. Age is one of the important factors in a case of thyroid cancer. And it may be part of a man, multiple endocrine neoplasia 2 or 3, 2B or 3. Complication, what will happen with the multinodular goiter or a huge goiter? It may produce tracheal obstruction due to large size. Trachea may be displaced laterally, or it may compress trachea, resulting in acute respiratory obstruction. Or hemorrhage into a nodule impacted in the thoracic inlet may produce acute respiratory obstruction. Already there is intrathoracic extension. Sudden hemorrhage into a nodule impacted in the thoracic inlet region may produce acute respiratory obstruction. Now, we have seen these nodules Secondary thyroidotoxicity occurs in about 30% of cases. Why we see secondary means the nodular status or abnormality of the thyroid gland is primarily present, over which this secondary thyroidotoxicosis superimposed. The incidence is around 30%, all Western statistics, 30%. Whereas in primary thyroidotoxicosis, there may not be any history of thyroid enlargement. The enlargement and the symptoms may start simultaneously, or rarely the symptoms are start and there may not be any visible palpable thyroid enlargement. That is a classical clinical picture in a case of primary thyroidotoxicosis. Whereas in secondary thyroidotoxicosis, there is a history of thyroid nodule, thyroid enlargement stretching from months, weeks to years. Suddenly, there is toxicity superimposed in 30% of cases. Prevention and treatment, how to prevent these multinodular goiter. You take hydrogen salt. If there is a deficiency, we'll give thyroxine, T4. Nodular status is irreversible, so you go for surgery. Because nodular stage is irreversible. Now, retrosternal goiter. This is due from ectopic thyroid tissue. Generally, the normal thyroid, especially this retrosternal goiter, occurs more commonly in men because of their increased negative intrathoracic pressure. It tries to pull down the thyroid into the thoracic inlet. More common in males because of the increased or high intrathoracic pressure. Mostly lower pole of nodular goiter may be symptomless or may be found on routine chest X-ray. As see, the important surgical point here is as the nodular goiter thyroid is pulled down into the thoracic inlet, the blood supply also comes from above. So through a cervical incision, in 99% of cases, you will be able to remove the retrosternal goiter. The thoracic approach, opening the thorax, is not commonly necessary. It may be less than 1%. Cases you have to open the thorax. 99% through a cervical or normal thyroid incision, we are able to deal with this retrosternal goiter. It may produce dysphonia, dysphagia, obstruction of SVC, superior vena cava, recurrent laryngeal paralysis, or there may be carcinoma and toxicity. Because these things can occur in a retrosternal goiter wherever it is present. Toxicity may occur or it may turn into carcinoma and it requires as usual treatment. Wherever thyroid is present, cervical or thoracic, if these complications occurs, it requires active surgical treatment. Because if you give toxicity, thyroxine drugs, anti-thyroid drugs, it may increase in size further, produces more obstruction. So obstruction with toxicity, no anti-thyroid drugs, no radioactive, only with surgery. Surgery is a treatment of choice for retrosternal goiter when it is associated with obstruction, with or without toxicity. You have no other choice. You can't give this. These two cause further enlargement of the gland, worsens the clinical situation. Superior vena cava obstruction becomes worsens because there is enlarging tumor which is pressing on the vital structures. Thyroid incident lung. Basically, by incident, you are doing a CT scan, ultrasound, or some other condition. You find thyroid enlargement. Increasing use of imaging modality. Clinically, you don't suspect. It is not palpable. It is incidentally finding. That's why it is called incident. It is becoming now epidemic. And somebody says, well, you have multiple thyroid nodules, though clinically not palpable, not symptomatic, no functional disturbance, but still, it produces needless anxiety. Now everybody starts worrying, what will happen to this nodule? Are they carcinoma? Are they going to produce toxicity? Well, what is happening inside? So, but they are managed expectantly. Now you take this thyroid incidental, we are just summing up what we have just discussed. Thyroid incidentuloma on ultrasound, MRI or CT scan, accidentally found. If it is greater than 1.5 centimeters, one, there is history of radiation exposure. We have already seen what happens or when radiation exposure occurs in young age. Some therapeutic conditions. We use radiotherapy. Example, I told you Hodgkin's disease is common, or accidental exposure. Accidental industrial exposure of nuclear reactors. And you have seen recently, even yesterday, in the Germany, they have blasted 2 nuclear reactors which are off the duty or not non-functional. Because Germany says, there is now only one Germany. Germany says by 2022, they are going to wind up all nuclear power plants. They say it is a waste, it is dangerous, and they are going to shut down all nuclear power stations. Okay, in that process, already some plants are deactivated. Now they have blasted 2 reactors yesterday, that is the TV news. Okay, so radiation exposure can occur, ultrasound, MRI, or CT. So greater than 1.5 centimeters, history of radiation exposure, ultrasound, MRI, or CT suggestive of cancer. There is a family history of thyroid cancer. Now, in these cases, you do an ultrasound guided FNAC. Okay, if it is malignant or suspicious, you operate. If it is benign, observe. Now, what are the indications for ultrasound guided FNAC? In a case of incident trauma, this already we have discussed. Now, here you have less than 1.5 centimeters incident trauma. Ultrasound, MRI, CT scan suggestive of benign nature. They are suggestive. Now you can observe. Observe, keep them under surveillance. Coming to thyroiditis, inflammatory conditions, chronic lymphocytic autoimmune thyroiditis, also known as Hashimoto's. In this, thyroid antibodies, they are present in more than 85% autoantibodies. We have thyroid peroxidase, TPO, thyroglobulin. They are increased. There is a family history of autoimmune thyroiditis or autoimmune thyroid disorders like diabetes mellitus or some other autoimmune disorders. Family history is present, and it may present as a goiter or rarely solitary thyroid. Rarely inflammatory conditions. This is one of the differential diagnosis in a case of solitary thyroid. Maybe rarely a thyroiditis may present as STM, and it may be lobulated or vacillated. In this chronic lymphocytic autoimmune thyroiditis, there is increased incidence of papillary carcinoma or malignant lymphoma. So it is not simply an itis, inflammation, autoimmune disorder, okay, but you have a increased incidence of papillary carcinoma or malignant lymphoma. Diagnosed by FNAC, the treatment is levothyroxine, because basically by autoimmune process, the follicles slowly but surely they are destroyed. Patient is going into hypothyroidism. Now supplement with thyroxine T4. Second thing is granulomatous thyroiditis, otherwise known as subacute or dequerence. This follows a viral infection like upper respiratory tract infection, maybe pain, fever, malaise. Inflammatory signs, all the acute inflammatory signs, you know, dollar, collar, rubor, tumor, functionalism may be seen, and there are no thyroid antibodies. Here, thyroid autoantibodies are present in more than 85% of cases, and they are increased thyroid autoantibodies in more than 85%. Okay, we have this thyroid peroxidase or thyroid globulin. See the contrast here, no thyroid antibodies. Okay, I123 uptake is low. T4 is high normal or just slightly rise. Again confirmed by FNDC. It is self-limiting because it is inflammatory. You need to give prednisolone 10 to 20 milligrams for 7 days. Plus slowly taper. You know how to taper and why you should taper these steroids. And again, you know, what is the minimum dose when you have to start this taper, plus or minus thyroids. Renal thyroiditis is very rare, 0.5% of all cases. So, don't diagnose clinically renal thyroiditis unless you are doubly sure, because you are doubly wrong if you diagnose a renal thyroiditis without taking proper care. In the exam also, remember, we are not impressed by your fancy diagnosis or a rare diagnosis. 99% of cases are common cases, which you see daily and day out. They are kept. So don't think you have made a very rare diagnosis and expect more. No. Reverse will happen. Nobody will appreciate you if you make a very rarest of rare diagnosis. You have to pay penalty for that. Fibrous, it is maybe fibrous tissue because, see, it is a collagen disorder, may be associated with retroperitoneal and mediastinal fibrosis. And this fibrosis extends into the muscles, adjoining structures, parathyroids, recurrent laryngeal nerve, carotid sheath, everything becomes fibrous. Maybe as a collagen disorder, now manifesting in thyroid, may be associated with retroperitoneal and mediastinal disorders. It may be unilateral or bilateral, very hot and fixed. Now here comes the diagnosis of anaplastic carcinoma. And if you diagnose anaplastic carcinoma, a short history, you are more likely to correct because anaplastic carcinoma occurs, the incidence is 5%. Whereas renal thyroid is 0.5%. Okay. So you are more likely to be correct if you diagnose anaplastic carcinoma rather than putting renal thyroiditis and saying eureka, I made a wrong diagnosis. I made a rare diagnosis, invariably that is wrong. That is dead wrong. Okay. And here, maybe true cut or wet biopsy of thyroid. You know the role of true cut, wet biopsy, incisional biopsy, frozen section, the role in the thyroid disorders. Okay. High dose steroids may be given. And tamoxifen, see, very interesting is tamoxifen because it is anti-estrogen and thyroid contains estrogen receptors. We are blocking them and maybe followed by thyroxine because everything becomes fibrosis, the follicles, everything, there is little thyroid hormone production. So you give them thyroxine. Now, any questions you can ask, you can type in the chat box. With this, we have completed the thyroid. Completely, we have finished the chapter. We have discussed anatomy, embryology, physiology, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, solitary nodule, investigations, carcinoma, including thyroiditis. We have in the first class itself, we have seen the thyroglossal cyst, aberrant thyroid, ectopic thyroid. All these things are over in the first class itself. Now, any questions you can chat in the box. Any questions you can text in the chat box. Some of the things like a national GOITRE control program, they will be dealt by the SPM people. And again, the recurrent laryngeal is involved, that is again dealt by ENT people. They will be telling in more detail. Again, when you come to 8th and 9th, we will be again revising what you have learned. Today, most of your pathology is revisited. We have revised, revisited your pathology, what they told in the pathology. Now, any questions or queries? If there are no questions or queries, we'll close down the session. Thank you. ఈ నెంబర్ వస్తుంది మరి ఎందుకు వస్తుంది? అడుగుతుంది ఎందుకు వస్తుందో లేదు.